Grab your cup. I want to offer you some powerful ways that you can move through conflicts with people, conflicts in your most personal relationships, conflicts out at work. These are some very specific things, and it's not that they're necessarily easy, but if you can understand what I'm talking about today and then you start to implement these things, you're going to see a shift, and a shift that I think really preserves relationships, because oftentimes conflicts and the way that we move through them are the very ways that our relationship gets pulled apart because we don't have great conflict resolution. So right off the bat, when I think of, or when I used to think of the word conflict, I saw it as a problem. In fact, when you look up the origin of the word, it means striking together. And historically, and for most people, I think they would see striking at each other over the issue. That's what a conflict is. We're going to strike at each other. We're striking together over this issue. You can take the same meaning and just shift it enough to have it feel differently for you, and have it mean we are going to strike together against the issue rather than striking against each other over an issue. We're going to come together and strike together against whatever the issue is. So it could be an issue around communication. Something didn't get communicated well, and now an issue has arisen. It could be an issue around parenting. It could be an issue around money. Whatever the conflict is, but instead of coming at it me against you over this issue, it's now me and you together. Let's figure out this issue. If you're committed to having great relationships, that's the more powerful place to stand. When you can stand there, that it's you and I together to resolve this issue, now it shifts your whole perspective. In lower levels of consciousness, so consciousness is the way that you see the world. It's your conscious perspective of your life in the world. And there's different levels of consciousness. Just like, from young children can be conscious of certain things when they're still in diapers compared to when they're 6 and 7, compared to when they're in middle school, right? As we age, our consciousness of what we can do in the world changes. Well, our consciousness level as an adult will be at a certain level. And the lower your consciousness level is, the more you see yourself as a victim to life. So it might be, I'm a victim, everybody else, has it better than me. Or it might be, I'm a victim, but I'm going to make sure that I have my dukes up, that I've carried my sword and shield everywhere I go because I feel like a victim. The next level of consciousness would be, there doesn't have to be a victim. We can both be winners, a win-win. And then the next level of consciousness would be, it's not about winning or losing ever. It's about life experiences and then I grow. Life experiences and then I grow. There is no winning and losing. There's just experiencing and learning. And if I don't learn, I get more of the same experiences until I do learn. So am I learning my lessons? That's a much higher level of consciousness. So it depends on where you're at. And it takes some work to really move yourself, to release some of your old stories that keep you at lower levels of consciousness. But at any rate, when you're resolving conflict, if you can get yourself to a consciousness level where there is no winning or losing, it's just this issue is happening, and are we going to allow it to pull us apart, or are we going to allow it to bring us together? When we can take the issue and strike at it together, then we have now used that opportunity as a place of growth for our relationship. We've learned a way to work together to resolve, and we didn't look at each other adversarial. Now, what that would require is, number one, giving up being right. Human beings want to be right. It's in our nature, in the human part of us. In the spiritual part of us, where those higher levels of consciousness reside, when we're more connected to our spiritual self, we don't need to be right all the time. If my commitment is to be right, I'm going to show up in this conflict very differently. And even if I'm trying to work together with you, I want you to see that I'm right. That's going to be a very different experience than I can give up being right. And my biggest commitment in this whole experience is that we resolve it, and we resolve it powerfully so that we grow. Even if it's someone that isn't close to you, a conflict at the grocery store with a customer service person. Maybe you don't care about their growth, but for you and your growth, do I resolve this in a way where I don't need to be right, but there's actually a resolution that I can walk away from having grown in the experience? But certainly in my personal relationships, I have shifted from being a victim, needing to feel right. That was always governing the way things went for a long time in my life. Now, the relationships that are important to me, I'm interested in us resolving them together powerfully without anybody being a winner, but just with the experience of moving forward. So what's your commitment in this conflict? Do you need to be right, or are you willing to put that aside and honor the relationship as the bigger thing than your own personal rightness? Okay? The next thing is, do you go right to being defensive? That's really a trauma response. That's a nervous system. This is how I cope when I'm feeling threatened, right? Nervous system is turned on, fight or flight. I'm feeling threatened. I get defensive or I get aggressive, either one, defensive or aggressive. When you're doing either one of those two things, you're not listening to the other person's perspective. So the ability to put a pause, just put a pause and say, okay, let me actually lean out a little bit rather than aggressing in, and get some curiosity in the space and hear what their perspective is. How did we get to this point? What is your experience about how we got to this point? Listen to it. Actually be in how they're sharing their experience with you. And they may not be able to turn off their aggression, but if you work on turning off yours. And then, well, let me share with you how I see it. Let me share with you what my experience was. Now, if both people can sit in curiosity with a commitment to resolution and working together for growth rather than winning, the whole idea of conflict has changed. The whole experience and the whole outcome will be different. So can I be curious and offer a perspective and listen to yours? If your emotions are too revved up and your nervous system is turned on to fight or flight, I think a really powerful thing to do is to say, we need to come back to this. Right now, I need to go calm myself down. You can't be in a nervous system triggered response and be powerful in the problem solving and the compassion and the listening. You can't. So if you feel that that's happening, notice what's happening in your body. Then, and with your close people, you might even have a phrase that you agree on, where if you say that phrase, it means, hold on, I need some time. But you can just say, I need to take a minute, or I need to come back later tonight for us to talk about this when I can get myself calmer. I need some time and space. That's all you have to say. And then go and do that work to get yourself calmer. Learn nervous system regulation, learn emotional regulation, so you can come back powerfully and resolve the conflict. I have a lot of clients who are really afraid of conflict, who shut down in conflict, and that is all a trauma response. But you can change how you see conflict to this kind of perspective, and then how you respond in it. Now you start to create relationships that feel safe, where you're allowed to have alternative points of view, because you know that you'll be listened to, and you know that the commitment is for there to be a resolution and for you to stay together in whatever the context of that relationship is. I'm going to end with the last powerful thing that I think and I have been trying to do is always bring back up into the space, into your words, love. If it's close people, you can always just say, and I love you. I can't talk about this right now. I love you. We're going to come back later. You don't have to say that to the customer service guy, but you could say some version of that. If that makes sense to you, drop me a comment. I just want to know what your perspective is. Have a good day.